He is in the Baseball Hall of Fame, two-time Cy Young Award winner who is going to be part of the American Century Celebrity Golf Championship taking place, as always, in beautiful South Lake Tahoe, Nevada at the Edgewood Tahoe on July 7th through the 11th, and you'll see it on NBC and more. Tom Glavine here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great, Rich. How you doing?
I am doing better for talking to you. How's your golf game? You ready for this? What's going on?
I'll tell you this. I'm hitting the ball really good at the moment. Scoring has been an issue, so I got a few more days to work on that.
Okay. Now, let's be on. Let's go. I'm just going to go straight butter here. You, Smoltz, and Maddox. The best player is? Who is it?
Smoltzy, for sure.
Okay.
But I understand his game's not real good right now, according to him. So
he was on last week, and I'm a guy who can't concentrate playing golf at all. If I break 90, it really is cause to celebrate. So hearing somebody who probably gives shots back to the course complain about his game because he can't make the Champions Tour, it's literally the smallest violin playing for me. I'll be honest with you, Tom.
I can't argue with you. I mean, for all the things that we could be complaining about in life, he's complaining because, he can't make a senior tour in a sport that he's not a professional at. So, my goodness, I really feel bad for him.
Well, Tom, unfortunately, I think the GHIN or the GIN is public. What do you got over there, Chris? What do you got?
Well, I'm seeing that Tom's checking in at a 2.8.
Is that right, Tom? 2.8?
That seems right, yeah. So it's crept up a tiny bit.
Wow.
But yeah, that's about right.
So what's Maddox then? Where's Greg?
He's, I would say Greg and I are probably the same. He
Neck
and I
and
are,
neck?
right around a 3 or a 4 handicap, and Smoltzy's scratch to a probably +1 or +2.
So what was it like back in the day when Avery's starting and the three of you could go out and play golf while Avery had the bump that night? What do you got for me?
I mean, it was great. The poor guy who had to pitch that night. I mean, you just hope you weren't playing Pine Valley or something like that.
Just to say, see you later. So
Exactly.
were you playing golf regularly when you were playing with those two guys? And just because I was hearing that you guys would just go and you'd go out there and you'd play some rounds of golf when you were not pitching. Did that happen frequently?
We played all the time. I mean, if we weren't pitching, we were playing, other than maybe a weekend series somewhere, because weekends are always a little bit harder to get on the golf courses. So,
right.
That was a little bit of a challenge. But Smoltzy was the absolute best at getting tee times and setting stuff up. So, it was, if we had a 7-day road trip and, that included obviously a Saturday and a Sunday, we probably played at least 4 days because we had to pitch one day.
So Smoltz was the golf concierge? Tom?
He was, yes. He was fantastic.
Give me your best story. What's your best story? Who you played with? Who rounded out a foursome one time where Smoltz was able to get you?
I mean, we played with so many good guys over the years. I think, look, one of our best golf trips was, we landed at LaGuardia on a Sunday night and walked out the back of the plane. Smoltzy had a car waiting for us on the tarmac. We drove out to Long Island, played New York National in the morning on Monday.
Yep.
Had lunch, played Shinnecock in the afternoon.
Yep.
And then was back in the city that night. So that was a pretty good day. But, I mean, we played with so many guys. I mean, down there in Orlando, when we moved over to Orlando for spring training, I mean, Tiger was there. We played with him a bunch. Mark O'Meara, Paul Azinger. I mean, all those guys were down there. And Lee Janzen. We played with so many of those guys. It was a blast.
Oh, man. And plus, it doesn't matter if when you're playing the Mets, because Chipper pretty much had them in his bag anyway, right? Didn't matter.
All we had to do is make sure Chipper was good and everything was good.
Oh, man. What was the angriest you've ever seen Bobby Cox, Tom?
I mean, there were a couple. We had
good one.
I remember one time, one of the big things with Bobby was, particularly as it came to the bullpen, was, don't ask him what your role is, and essentially it was, your role is to pitch when I tell you to pitch. So we had gotten a guy over, it was 1990, late 90, somewhere in there when Bobby took over again on the bench. And we had a long trip back from San Francisco back to Atlanta, and one of our relievers, I won't mention his name, but he was complaining about, how he was being used and whatever. And back in those days, you might have a beer or two on the charter on the way home. So we convinced him that when we got back to Atlanta, now mind you, that was like probably 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning after an all-night flight, we convinced him it would be a good idea to go and talk to Bobby about his role when we got back to Atlanta. So needless to say, we were kind of all hovering around the outside of Bobby's office door as this guy went in, and sure enough, it was an expletive-filled conversation about essentially your role is when I pick up the phone and call down there and tell you to get up, it's your turn to pitch. That's your role. Now get the hell out of here.
Oh, see, but you're listening through the keyhole, pretty much, right? Trying to see.
Back then we were still in Atlanta, Fulton County Stadium, a real old stadium.
Right.
So Bobby's office kind of was at the end of a row of lockers, so there was a little bit of a corner that you could hide behind that obscured Bobby's door to you. So Bobby couldn't see you, and we couldn't see him, but we could hear everything. So it was priceless.
Tom Glavine here on the Rich Eisen Show. What do you think of the checking of pitchers these days, Tom, for the spider tack and all the sticky stuff? What do you think about what's going on?
Look, I come down a little bit on both sides. I understand the pitcher's frustration a little bit that this is being done in the middle of the season. That part I get. But at the same time, I've said I don't think they have anybody to blame but themselves. I think everybody knew this was going on in the game to some extent and kind of turned the cheek to it, so to speak, and kind of, I don't want to say hid, but kind of, left it under the guise that, if this helps guys have a little bit better command and we don't have guys getting hit in the head in the batter's box, then it's somewhat of a safety issue. Okay, we'll turn the cheek. But I think clearly it got taken too far, and I don't think Major League Baseball had much of a choice really to step in and do something about it. And so I think from that standpoint, it's the players' fault because they did take it too far. They had somewhat of a gentleman's agreement, so to speak, that went too far, and I think baseball had to get it under control. Now, what are they going to do moving forward? I don't know. I've heard conversations about, well, maybe we need to allow them to use sunscreen, or maybe we. So if there's a way to differentiate, between spider tack and sunscreen in terms of having a little bit of a grip versus, really enhancing a guy's spin rate on a fastball or a curveball, then I think that's going to be a discussion. I personally just don't know how they go about doing that.
Yeah, we had Don Mattingly on the show yesterday, Tom, and he's saying that players, his guys would come back from the batter's box and just say that ball moved in a way that I've never seen in my entire life. And Don would say that he would.
You hear guys say that, right? And when and especially when they talk about spin rate, and I know it's for old guys like me who played the game, right? A lot of this analytical stuff is just putting numbers to what your eyes see, and I don't need a spin rate meter, so to speak, to tell me if a guy has or threw a good curveball. You can see it, but certainly having spin rate, I think, helps the average fan understand the difference between a good curveball and a mediocre curveball. Now, as it relates to a fastball, I guess that's where spin rate became more of an understanding for me when it came to the fastball, because you do hear guys talk about hitters seeing a fastball, going to hit a fastball where they think it's going to end up based on gravity and all these things, and then because of the spin rate, it doesn't do that. It stays on plane, and that's why guys are swinging and missing so much on high fastballs. So I think there's something to that. How much of it, I don't know. But I do, I see all that. But, you do. You see some pitches nowadays that you kind of just like, wow, that was, and I think you see some bad ones too, right? I mean, I've seen more in the games I've done this year, Rich. I've seen more 55-foot curveballs than I've seen in a long, long time. And I'm assuming that has something to do with, the sticky stuff the guys have on their hands.
I would think so for sure. And so I guess last thing for you is back in your day, was there always a concern about having a grip on the baseball as much as we're hearing about right now, Tom?
There's always been a concern about the grip. I think that the conversation now it's a little bit different, right? Like I know for me, and I'll speak for me. if I was going to go, and when I pitched in New York, or when I was in Atlanta and you went to New York or you went to Chicago in April, it's cold. And when it's cold and your hands are cold, it's hard to hold on to that baseball. So, yeah, you're always searching for something in that scenario to try and have a better grip on the ball, not only to command it, but to be able to make it spin and do the things you wanted it to do, whether it's making it spin on a curveball or for me to make it spin the way I wanted it to spin on my sinker and my changeup, knowing I was going to get the movement I'm looking for and the location ultimately that I'm looking for. We didn't define it back then in terms of spin rate, right? We didn't think of it that way. I think that's more a part of the conversation in today's game. But yeah, there's always that fight, so to speak, that balance of, man, it's cold out. I can't really feel my fingers. This ball feels like a snowball in my hand. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure where it's going. So, you would try to find any way you could to keep a little bit of perspiration on your hand so you could grip that baseball.
Tom Glavine here on the Rich Eisen Show. He's going to be playing in the American Century Celebrity Golf Championship in Tahoe in a couple weeks. Just a few more minutes left with the Baseball Hall of Famer here on the Rich Eisen Show. Do you think we'll ever see somebody win 300 games again? Somebody's coming in the league right now, win 300 games?
I hate to say never. I'm not a big, I'm a never say never kind of guy. But if you were asking me to bet on it, I would say no. And it's not because there aren't guys in the game talented enough to do it. I mean, if you're going on pure talent alone, then Jake DeGrom is going to win 300 games.
Right.
The problem for the most part is you got to pitch 20 years to win 300 games. And I just don't see anybody in today's game doing that. Like, I don't see guys being able to stay healthy long enough to pitch for 20 years. When you look at so many of the guys in today's game, there are a lot of guys that are max effort guys, and there are some guys that aren't. But even a guy like Jake DeGrom, who I don't consider to be a max effort guy, I love his delivery. I think everything's kind of smooth and easy, and it comes out 100 miles an hour. You're seeing this year, and I hope it doesn't amount to anything, but you're seeing this year he's had a little bit of issues here and there. He's had some dings and some dents a little bit this year. So to think that he's going to be able to pitch at this level for 15 more years, throwing as hard as he does, that's the part for me that I just don't see anybody staying healthy long enough to do it. And then on the flip side of that, you start talking about guys who are max effort guys. There's no way your body's holding up for 20 years. So I think that's the big thing. It's not talent. There are guys that have plenty of talent to do it. I just don't think their bodies are going to hold up for 20 years.
Before I let you go, Tom, I've worked with him. I've gotten to know him. I love him. He's one of my favorite people I've gotten to meet. Give me your favorite Deion Sanders story. You got one for me, Tom? When he arrived?
I'll tell you what, Deion, I'll just say this about Deion. When we traded for Deion, I was probably amongst the guys that were like, what are we doing?
Right.
I couldn't have been more wrong about Deion. Deion was a great teammate. He would give you the shirt off his back.
Yep.
But Deion was the first and really one of the best at understanding how to market Deion and how to market primetime. I mean, Deion in the clubhouse with the guys was just a funny guy, a fun-loving guy. And when that red light went on and it was in front of him, it was primetime. And he was really, other than maybe Muhammad Ali, he was the first guy that I saw that really knew how to do that. And, like I said, I think he maybe took a little bit of a bad rap at times, but look, he was a great teammate. He was fun to be around. Doing everything that he did, playing football, playing baseball. I still think he would have been a hell of a baseball player if he spent more time doing it, but he was pretty darn good at football.
Well, Tom, obviously you had a front row seat for this. Had you guys won the World Series, the one which he was playing with you, he could have been MVP of that World Series, Tom.
He wouldn't have. I would have.
Amazing.
My bad, Tom. My bad. He would have been in the running. Let me rephrase that. He would have been in the running. He would have been in the running for
fair enough
MVP of the World Series. I love it. There is no statute of limitation on pride. There is none.
That's right. 100%.
That is hilarious. All right, so do you know who you're paired with in Tahoe yet, or do you find out when you arrive? Do you know that yet?
No, we find out when we get there. Generally, they'll have me, Smoltzy, and Maddox on day one, and then Smoltzy will be amongst the leaders, and he'll go to another group, and Greg and I will be towards the back somewhere this year, but I'm hoping to change that.
Towards the back. I mean, you're not going to be paired with Barkley, Tom. Let's be honest.
No, not that far back. Maybe the middle of the bus, not the back of the bus.
Take care of yourself, Tom Glavine. I really appreciate the time. Let's do this more often. I miss talking to you. I barely just scratched the surface on the stories that you could tell. Appreciate it.
I'd love to do it. You know where to find me now, so anytime.
I appreciate that. That's Tom Glavine, Hall of Famer, man in Cooperstown, 2-time Cy Young Award winner right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.